The news updates have been coming out at a crazy speed. Welcome to the new reality of the world, specifically of Israel, with President Trump back in charge of the United States of America. Everything is moving so fast. So let's try to break it all down and answer the big question on everyone's mind right now. Will all hell break loose on Shabbat, Saturday, if Hamas does not release all of our hostages per Trump's ultimatum? First and foremost, Trump has thrown down the gauntlet. He has issued a bold ultimatum to Hamas and its backers, our Islamonazi enemies. Release all Israeli hostages by Shabbat, Saturday at noon, or all hell will break loose. Unlike the Biden administration, which spent 15 months begging, appeasing, and more importantly, funding our Islamonazi terrorist enemies, Trump is doing what should have been done from day one of this war, putting our Islamonazi enemies and its enablers on notice. Either they comply or they face devastating consequences. So, how has Israel responded so far? Well, the Israeli cabinet met yesterday and left everyone confused. Senior officials started muddying the waters, saying things like, if Hamas releases 3 hostages, some said 9 hostages, maybe we'll hold back and not release all hell. And let me tell you, this is exactly the kind of weak hesitation that Hamas thrives on. Hamas knows how to play psychological warfare. They've been doing it throughout the war and for years against us. They know how to drag out hostage releases to manipulate Israelis and international pressure. And the moment they sense hesitation, they will exploit it, as they always have. But before we get to that, let's look at some of the other day's developments, because things are shifting so fast. The most interesting move of the day? Jordan's King Abdullah meeting with President Trump, and out of nowhere, offering to take in 2,000 sick Gazan children. Now, 2,000 children is nothing in the grand scheme of things, but symbolically, that was actually huge. Let me explain to you. Jordan originally refused to take in any Islamonazi Gazans. Now, suddenly, they're starting to budge, okay? And we know that 2,000 children do not come alone. Their families will be going with them. So this is Trump's deal-making at work. He applies real pressure, and suddenly an Arab leader starts moving closer to him. King Abdullah also told Trump that Arab leaders are now scrambling to put together their own plan for Gaza. Why? Because they see that Trump is about to dictate the future of the region on his terms, and they are panicking. They want their terms. But the Arab Muslim countries in the Middle East had 76 years to solve the issue of Gaza. Yet, as we know, they were actively part of the problem, using our Islamonazi enemies in Gaza as a proxy war pawn against Israel for them. And now, in just a few months, Trump is forcing them to take action against their own anti-Israel proxy pawn in Gaza. And they know that he's serious. Meanwhile, while Jordan is engaging, Egypt is defying President Trump outright. First, Egyptian President Sisi canceled next week's scheduled meeting with President Trump. A very bad move with Trump that I'm sure will have an impact on Trump being even harsher in the negotiations with Egypt. Then, Egypt released its own Gaza plan, which completely ignores Trump's vision for and solution for the region. And what is Egypt's publicized plan? Keep all Gazans in Gaza and let the Arab world rebuild Gaza. Egypt's plan is a joke, probably angering Trump even more, which is good news for Israel and the whole freedom-loving world. It's a non-starter plan, totally ignoring Trump's negotiating tactics. While the King of Jordan knows how to pamper to Trump's deal-making tactics, right, and he threw him a bone, and makes Trump happy, the King of Egypt is exposing himself as totally in the dark. He is seriously insulting Trump at the beginning, step 1 of the negotiating process. His plan totally ignores Trump's own understanding and hence solution for the Gaza situation, which is 100% spot-on analysis. The King of Egypt can try to negotiate for a better deal, but not by ignoring Trump's analysis of the problem. President Trump has been quite clear that Gaza is a death trap right now. a ticking time bomb of destruction where Hamas has literally weakened the foundations of every building in Gaza, their terror tunnel network under the whole Gaza Strip. Rebuilding would take 10 to 15 years, if that is even possible. In addition, Trump was quite clear that as Gaza has been on-again, off-again terror war against Israel for decades, with a cycle of death and destruction, and then rebuilding, with it going all over again, Israel defends itself, goes in, destroys, they rebuild, go back to terror. Egypt's non-starter plan totally ignores solving that problem. But Egypt doesn't care. Egypt is just trying to avoid blame and keep the problem of Gaza alive. Hence, it probably upsets Trump. Even worse. And at the same time, what is Egypt doing? Egypt is ramping up military operations in the Sinai Desert. They are not just rejecting Trump's plan. They are literally preparing for war with Gaza right now. Just check out some of these recent clips of Egyptian army military buildup and training in the Sinai Desert.
ما هذا الصوت يا أبي؟
إنه صوت الحرب يا ولدي. صوت الحرب. اتجاهات الاستراتيجية.
دبابات
رافعين حاجة الاستعداد.
بص اسطول الدبابات.
بص اسطول الدبابات.
Understand, the only enemy Egypt has to prepare to fight one day is Israel. And this is a country we have a peace deal with. So, what's going to happen on Shabbat? Right? That's the big question everyone is talking about. What's going to happen when Trump's ultimatum ends on Shabbat at noon? No clue if it's noon Eastern Standard Time, noon Israel time. Regardless, if Hamas releases no hostages on Shabbat, will Israel finally bring all hell upon our Islamonazi enemies in Gaza? Or will Israel hold back from raising hell on Gaza, allowing Hamas to drag this nightmare out even longer to try to save whatever hostages we can? And let's be clear, returning to fully destroying Hamas is the only way to secure Israel's future, and eventually it will happen. The consequences of waiting to release hell on Gaza is that every day that passes puts the remaining live hostages at even greater risk of never getting out of Gaza alive, but there's also the risk of them dying in our bombing of Gaza when we return to fight. As Prime Minister Netanyahu deliberates what to do when Trump's ultimatum ends on Shabbat, the question is, what should Israel be doing right now without having to wait for Shabbat at noon? If you ask me, Israel should be 1, cutting off all aid, water, and electricity to Gaza until every last hostage is released. 2, Israel should not be allowing any more humanitarian aid into Gaza that literally sustains Hamas while they hold on to our hostages and not release them. And now, let's stop for a moment. Just to highlight the hypocrisy of the world, the United Nations just announced that it is suspending giving humanitarian aid in Yemen. Why? Well, this headline says, UN suspends its humanitarian work in Houthi rebel stronghold in Yemen after more staff detentions. What are detentions? 8 United Nations staff members were kidnapped, and for that they are stopping humanitarian aid. You hear that? United Nations stopping humanitarian aid because United Nations staff members were kidnapped. But when 250 innocent Israeli civilians were kidnapped and held hostage in Gaza by Islamonazis, no, the United Nations, the Biden administration, the whole Western world screamed that Israel would be prosecuted for war crimes if we would stop humanitarian aid to be given. You see the hypocrisy? It screams to the high heavens. But I digress. The third thing Israel should do immediately is stop allowing food, fuel, and cement being given to Gaza that continues to allow Hamas to rebuild their terror tunnels right now as we speak. Israel must stop all aid to Gaza now. Now. No need to wait for Shabbat. Now, here's what I believe will happen on Shabbat. I doubt that Israel will unleash full hell on Saturday afternoon unless Hamas outright refuses to release any of our hostages. If they release just a few, 3 or even 9, then Israel will not release hell on Shabbat at noon after Trump's ultimatum, or Israel's ultimatum, because Israel wants to try to get as many live hostages out of Gaza as possible before we start massively bombing Gaza. So I don't think that Shabbat will be the day that we release hell on Gaza. But make no mistake, that day is coming, and it's coming soon. It's not a question of if, but a question of when. Because the day is fast approaching when Hamas stops releasing any of our hostages altogether. Because holding on to our hostages is their only leverage over us. So they're definitely going to hold on to some and never release all. And when the day comes that they stop releasing our hostages, which unfortunately will probably be pretty soon, like within a week or 2, Israel will notify all Gazans to move south or north or wherever to then be able to send in the Israeli Air Force and bomb the area to hell that they want to tackle without the non-combatants to prepare for the proper ground invasion of IDF forces that will totally destroy Hamas and help us try to save as many of the hostages, dead or alive, that we can. As I've been saying since the beginning of this war only ends when Hamas is gone, when our Islamonazi enemy in Gaza, not just Hamas, where they are all gone, and Israel is in total control of Gaza to make Gaza Jewish again. All right? And that's what's going to happen. But the most important thing to remember is that God above is running the show. Not President Trump and not Netanyahu. They are both just messengers of God above. On October 7th, 2023, we the Jewish people suffered the greatest Jewish tragedy since the Holocaust. The massacre of innocent Jews, the brutal rapes, the burned bodies, the kidnappings, the hostages. We will never forget, and we will never forgive. But who on October 8th, 2023, could have imagined that just 16 months later, Israel would have the backing of the strongest country in the world to unleash hell on our Islamonazi enemies who did October 7th to be able to achieve total victory? It's important to internalize and to always remember that God above is directing this war as everything and no one else. Now, let's also not forget, before the war, the Israeli deep state ran a massive, well-funded protest movement against the government, coordinated and funded by Biden, Blinken, and USAID, as I've covered extensively in various videos, including this latest one. This deep state, during that protest movement, encouraged thousands of IDF soldiers, including elite Air Force pilots and special forces, to publicly call to refuse to serve in the IDF, even if called upon to serve in an attack on Israel. Just watch this.
המטרה שלנו, של אנשי המחאה לצורך העניין, או המילואימניקים שהקפיאו את השירות, זה לגרום לחיל האוויר לא לחזור לתפקוד מלא, גם לא ברגיעה ובטח ובטח לא אם חס וחלילה ניכנס למצב חירום. לא רק אנחנו, גם מילואימניקים של יחידות וכלל צה"ל, אותו דבר, בשביל ליצור קשר, ליצור לחץ על מקבלי ההחלטות.
And that's one of just so many video clips where they were calling to refuse to serve. They literally sabotaged our IDF readiness, ensuring that the IDF would be unprepared for October 7th. And unfortunately, top IDF and security officials either supported this refusal to serve movement or stood by and did nothing, like the IDF Chief of Staff, Herzi Halevi, and Defense Minister at the time, Yoav Gallant. Now, this wasn't an accident. The Israeli deep state made sure that our army was caught with its pants down for October 7th. Protest leaders before the war were clear that Netanyahu would not have an army come September or October 2023. Here are some of the many clear calls directly saying so. And this has raised so many questions about why it was important for them to specify that Netanyahu wouldn't have an army ready in September and October 2023. But that's a different topic for a different video that I've also touched upon in the past Impulsive Israel videos. And then, once October 7th happened and the war started, the same corrupt leadership did everything possible to stop us from winning this war. Again, as I have spoken about countless of times in various Pulse of Israel episodes, senior security establishment in Israel were refusing to follow Netanyahu and the government's orders to destroy Hamas. The IDF chief of staff wouldn't even allow the IDF to hold on to land in Gaza that they conquered and cleaned of terrorists in order to prevent terrorists from returning to use those same areas that our holy IDF fighters died and got injured cleaning out from terrorists. It was an insane war that our senior security leadership were doing everything possible not to allow us to win because they were taking orders or trying to make the Biden administration happy to not hold land to Gaza because Biden wanted us out, even though our government was telling us to defeat Hamas, which means we have to stay. You cannot win a war without taking land and ensuring that the enemy can never attack again. War 101. Yet that was exactly the chief of staff's war plan, going against government orders to allow us and our army and our holy soldiers to destroy Hamas. Time and again, the security and army command ignored or pushed back against government directives, including pushing back against the brilliant James Bond-like beepers, walkie-talkie pinpoint attack that destroyed Hezbollah's command structure in Lebanon. It's insane to say it, but yes, Israel's senior command tried to stop Netanyahu from approving that unbelievable game-changer operation that totally changed the trajectory of the war and the whole Middle East in Israel's favor. They were against it. Netanyahu went against senior security staff. I could go on and list every instance, but let's focus on what matters. My point is that despite the continuous sabotage of our own senior security officials, we are winning this war and in the position to have total victory today with President Trump's backing to do what we need to do, unlike that we didn't have during the Biden administration for the first 15 months of the war. You know why Trump now understands that Gaza is unlivable? Because despite never receiving the orders to do so, our combat engineering units and D9 bulldozer drivers destroyed everything they could in Gaza. It is because of their heroic efforts in Gaza that Gaza today is in ruins. It is because of their holy work in Gaza that the world sees the truth, that Gaza cannot exist ever again as a terror state. And it's because of the sacrifice of all of our holy IDF soldiers who risked their lives, lost their lives, got injured fighting in Gaza, that all the Islamonazi population in Gaza must be relocated. Because if it wouldn't have been destroyed, Trump wouldn't support relocating them. Despite all the deep state's effort to stop us from winning the war, taking back our land in Gaza, and destroying Hamas completely. You understand how miraculous this is? That is why I point out time after time that God above is directing everything. And Trump and Netanyahu are just messengers. Sometimes they do things we like, sometimes they do things we don't like. Doesn't make a difference. God's running the show. That is why we must be thankful to God above. Not just for all the good, but in Judaism we're taught we also have to thank God for the bad. And that's a hard thing, because we do not understand why everything happens. But understand, we in Judaism, we believe God gave us all free will, which means evil people have the chance to choose to do evil. And then when that happens, even when it's evil and not good, we ask, wait, why did it happen? Well, we have to thank God for everything no matter what. But it's the evil people who decided to do evil because we have free will. But ultimately, I want people to better understand that 1, the battle isn't just military. It's a spiritual battle. 2, even though the deep state tried to block our victory and stop us from winning this war, well, God above is forcing it to happen. We will have total victory. And even with all the resistance, the truth is being revealed to the world, not just in Israel, but also thanks to President Trump and Elon Musk's work exposing the deep state corruption in the United States. And all this exposure is still only at the beginning, as so much is going to be exposed and blow everyone's minds. But returning to Trump's ultimatum for this Shabbat at noon, it is just another step in this miraculous journey of redemption that we are all living through. We must remember, Trump is a messenger, Netanyahu is a messenger, but God above is running the show. So strengthen your faith, everyone. Stay strong, pray, because we are all living in these miraculous, redemptive times. That's it for today's Pulse of Israel. If you are not yet a subscriber, what are you waiting for? Go to pulseofisrael.com and click to subscribe. And if you want to support our work, we are a donor-based organization. We need your support. We need your donations, big or small. As we're heavily censored and shadow banned across social media, it's thanks to your donations that we're able to do our work and get our videos seen, and we want to reach more people. Hence the importance of your donations. Every once in a while, just click on the donate button on pulseofisrael.com. Shalom, everyone, and thanks for watching.
Pulse of Israel, frontline videos from the Holy Land. Support our work by donating today.